back to the Bearded Podcast. And before we get started, before we do the introductions, Dylan, I've got to tell you something. Remember last year, whenever the 49ers beat the Packers, and before that game, I picked the 49ers and I said, I've got this gut feeling. I've got this feeling that I can't pick the Packers in this game. I've got another one of those feelings about one of these teams that we're going to talk about in a little bit for this divisional round. So be prepared for that because I've got another feeling. And it's not the Cowboys and it's not the 49ers. It's a different team completely. And we'll get to that whenever we get to our picks for this week's divisional round, which starts tomorrow. But nonetheless, I am the man with the plan, the man you got to stand, Jordan Crouton Moore. And I am joined, as always, by the guy to my left, the brains, the guy who loves himself some Jason Aldean. I think every single time I see a picture of him out, he's wearing that hat that he's wearing right now. Ladies and gentlemen, the man, the myth, the legend, Dylan Lowe. How are you doing, my brother?
I don't know. I think you overhyped me a little bit here. You know, I'm gonna start falling into the overrated category because you hype me up so much. So, but yeah, obviously, big Jason Aldean fan. Got these right here. Got the hat.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's just. I mean, that's. Oh, where'd that go? That's my artist. That like. I'm trying to see where I hung it up at. Oh, there it is. That's my artist that I feel like everyone has their artist that they literally could probably listen to any song and probably know every song by heart.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, him and Alan Jackson are just neck and neck for me. So who would that be for you? Like, if I had to guess, it would probably be like John Mayer.
Yeah, that's probably it. Probably John Mayer. I think I could listen.
What's he dropping at the end of the month?
Dude, I have no idea. I'm waiting to see. 26 next Thursday, right? Is that next? I think it's next Thursday. Yeah. So We'll see. Keep you updated. We'll probably do a podcast next week anyway. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, welcome back to the Bearded Podcast. It is great to have you all here. And if you're wondering, whenever I look down, I'm on my laptop. I don't have my big computer here. So whenever I'm looking down, I'm not just playing on my phone. I'm looking at Dylan because my camera's up here so that I have good lighting and my laptop is down here so that I can actually see everything. So I'm not just like not paying him any attention and like not listening to him and not caring about what he has to say about this wonderful game of football. He doesn't care. I don't care. I don't like him anyway.
He stopped caring the day that I went to hell and high water defending Jack Doyle. So
that's true.
This podcast has not been the same since that day. So,
dude, you know what? I was actually going to tell you this on the podcast today because I thought you'd be proud. But on Madden, I did a rebuild the other day, just like a fantasy draft and a rebuild, and I didn't have a good tight end. So I just renamed my 59 overall tight end to Jack Doyle. So now I have Jack Doyle on my fantasy football team, or not fantasy on my Madden franchise mode team. That might get wiped out because Madden servers suck, but that's a totally different conversation.
Facts. And to me, it looks like you have room for like one more little jersey thing back there. So
I do.
Go ahead and get that 84 Colts jersey or 86. Is it 86?
Dude,
84?
Low key, I might honestly get a Jack Doyle jersey. Like, how much are they going for on the black market right now?
Dude, if you go on like somewhere that like some Chinese website, you could get it for $20.
I'm looking this up right now. I'm looking this up right now. Do they sell Jack Doyle jerseys anymore?
They have, and if not, you could just get a custom Colts jersey.
Dude, they do. They so you can actually get them from the Indianapolis Colts shop for $49.99. And that is their Indianapolis Colt Legends jersey. So Jack Doyle is a Colt legend, according to Indianapolis.
I don't know why I'm laughing because it's facts.
It is facts. You know, he's the GOAT. He's the GOAT. Anyway, let's get into talking about some playoff football. Also, by the way, it looks like Arkansas State's going to be getting a returning wide receiver, which is cool. In the transfer portal, I had to throw that in there. I know, I did. You guys are getting a lot of people, I'm sure, through the transfer portal as well, and that's closed, by the way. So if you are waiting for your favorite player to declare for the transfer portal, guess what? He's not going to anymore. So you're good to go. So that period's over. Draft period's over. We know who's going to be in the NFL draft. We know who's declared. Of course, C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, two of those really big guys that have, of course, declared. Same for Will Levis and Hendon Hooker too. So
I think you can agree with me on this. dude, it makes me. It's getting to the point, and it's not just because it's an Ohio State quarterback. It's not just because it's. Oh, I found my sunglasses.
Hey, let's go.
It's not just because he's an Ohio State quarterback. Coincidentally, the times in recent memory where this became a thing had to do with Ohio State quarterbacks, whether it's C.J. Stroud now or Justin Fields. Why? Daniel Jeremiah, I do think he's a smart guy. I'm not whatever, but I looked at he put out his first mock draft today of the first round. He has C.J. Stroud at number 9 going to the Panthers. Which, first of all, how has he fallen that far? I don't know. But
yeah, that's true.
The thing that really gets me is guess who he had at number 4?
Will Levis.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone is all over Will Levis right now. It's like another Malik.
I don't necessarily think Will Levis is a bad prospect.
I don't think so either.
What, dude? It is like we watch college football all year long, and it's Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud. Like Caleb Williams will be in there, but he's not eligible this year, obviously. Yeah. So we all year long, it's Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud. Where did the idea that Will Levis is better than either of them come up into play?
Well, here's where this idea
every
comes
single
from.
year when there's a draft. I swear to God, there's some random quarterback that is above a quarterback and they shouldn't be. There's no merit to it.
It was like Zach Wilson, 2 years ago. Like, where did he come from? Right. He was fine at BYU, but he's not better than Justin Fields or Mac Jones. Like that's just ridiculous to say that.
And I'm dumbfounded. That's a perfect example of Zach Wilson. Oh my God! Wow, he went to a pro day and threw to nobody, or somebody that wasn't even being covered, and threw a cool arm angled throw. 50 yards down the field. Wow,
yeah.
And
here's the thing.
Go watch the tape.
It comes from the NFL people who want to cover the draft and want to cover this stuff, but don't pay any attention to the actual college football season. They just look and they say, oh, yeah, this guy had a good year. Let's look at some of his highlights. They go look at his highlights and oh, yeah, this guy's a great raw prospect. We're going to move him up the draft boards. And once one person says that, all of a sudden everyone starts covering it, and it starts overhyping these prospects. And that's what happens in all of these drafts, because your raw talents, if you watch college football, your raw talents are Bryce Young, it's C.J. Stroud, it's probably someone like a Hendon Hooker who's going to end up going to the 4th or 5th round because God knows why. He's a really good talent. And that people like Will Levis, they're great quarterbacks and they're going to be good talents and good prospects, but I just don't know how good they are to be drafting as high as people are wanting them to go right now.
I'm dumbfounded by this every single year. It's like...
It always happens though. But let's move on to some NFL. Let's talk about our scores from the Super Wild Card weekend. Of course, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles, both with byes in the last week. But there were some really, really awesome games in Super Wild Card weekend. I really thoroughly enjoyed this. There were a lot of games that came down to those one possessions, or a lot of comebacks. It was really cool to watch. Dylan, overall, what did you think about Super Wildcard Weekend this year?
I mean, it was exciting. I mean, there were some exciting games. I mean, the Giants-Vikings was good. The Jags-Chargers was obviously a good one. Seahawks-49ers was good there for a minute.
Yeah.
And then to watch the Cowboys go get that win was sick. I think.
Oh yeah.
I think a lot of people are sleeping on the Bengals because of how they looked last week, but it's like they didn't look bad. It's like that is what the Ravens do, and it's so boring. Which Greg Roman just got fired, so things might change. But look, it is the Ravens. Like Lamar at least made it exciting because he would make those big plays when they presented themselves.
Yeah.
But when you have somebody that has to go in there like Tyler Huntley, and he's pretty much probably told by the coaching staff to be a game manager and just do your job, don't make anything crazy happen. It's going to make things dumbed down and super unbelievably boring. And this is the Ravens brand of football since Lamar has been out, has literally just been, they take so much clock and they make it pretty much forces it to come down to one possession. And it's like, if the Ravens turn the ball over, they're done. Like, they literally are done. Like, they cannot turn the ball over with the brand of football that they play because they take so much time off the clock, and they put themselves in that position where it's like they can win on some occasions and they can lose on some occasions. It depends on if they hold on to the football. And guess what? That is exactly what happened last week. the Ravens were playing that boring brand of football. It was close. It was looking like do the Bengals have a chance to really lose here to Tyler Huntley? After they just beat him last week, and then here's that turnover on that Sam Hubbard takes 98 yards of the end zone. So that's the Raven. That was the Ravens brand of football. It's a very dangerous game to play, and I'm hoping to see a change with Lamar, who I think will resign, and Greg Roman gone.
Absolutely. I think that Lamar was gearing up to be one of the more interesting people of the offseason. And then with the firing of Roman, it's just kind of like, yeah, Lamar's definitely going to be re-signing here. They're gonna bring Lamar in. They're going to sign him this big contract, and they're going to say, look, you're going to help us with the hiring process and this offensive coordinator. That's what you're going to do. So I think it's just a matter of time before Lamar is re-signed. But there is still another quarterback that needs a big contract, and we'll talk about him later and what he could do to earn said contract as he's going into free agency. But lot of really big stuff happened. Not talking about Zach Wilson. Instead, I'm going to be talking about Mr. DJ himself, Daniel Jones, who just came off of a big win against the Vikings. But let's move on to our games here. We've got our first one. You talked about it a little bit earlier about how it was close for a little while, but then, of course, the 49ers just ran away with it. That was the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Seattle Seahawks. And, Dylan, what did you see from this game? What did you see from the 49ers? Brock Purdy looked like he was a little bit off in that first half, but it looked like he really found himself in the second.
That's what I was going to bring up. As good as Brock Purdy's looked, and it's like, his career could end today, and he's, already a legend just based on the fact that he was Mr. Irrelevant in the draft. Yeah. But so what he's been able to do has been obviously incredible to this point. But the thing is, people will just look at the stats at the end of the game and be like, oh, he threw for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Cool. But if you watch the game, like you said, there were some questionable things happening in the first half, mainly the first quarter. And it's like, you're going against Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence this week. So it's like, that's not going to fly. I'm telling you, that's not going to fly. You start like that, you're going to find yourself in a hole deep or deep hole early. And I don't know. I don't think he will. I think he'll be fine this week. I think it's going to be actually a really good game. Yeah. I think I would say it's going to be the game of the weekend, but I really think the Bills-Bengals will be the game of the weekend.
I think so as well. I think that's definitely going to be your game of the weekend. I mean, without a doubt, but we'll talk about that when we get there. Yeah, I think that one of the main reasons why the 49ers were able to keep it so close in that first half, because Brock Purdy really was not playing good. He was not. He looked like a rookie quarterback going in whenever. He hasn't really looked like that throughout the regular season after he came in for Garoppolo. And, the reason why they were able to do that is because they have such a great backfield and such a great offensive line. Whenever you have Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell, who are both extremely good starting caliber running backs to both take care of that brunt force. I mean, that is hard to stop. Really game plan against the run there. And that run was able to open up play action. And most importantly, open up Deebo Samuel, who had a really, really good week. Of course, DK Metcalf did on the other side of the ball too. But Deebo Samuel, I mean, I just talked about how I thought that Brandon Ayuk was the better pure wide receiver last week, and all of a sudden Deebo's like, nah, I'm just going to go, 130 yards through the air? Like, come on. He looked fantastic.
Yep. I had a parlay that we all cooked up at my friend's house. We all cooked a parlay up for the Seahawks game and Jaguars game, and I think I sent it to you. Well, I sent you the Jaguars one. The 49ers one didn't hit because of George Kittle. And I think that would have paid like $100-something bucks. And then the one in the late window, which was like a $600 payout, or maybe it was like $800. I needed like 7 more rushing yards from Trevor Lawrence, and then I think I needed like 5 more receiving yards from ETN. It was like $10 win, 800-something.
Dude,
I couldn't the steamer. Hey, I know I sent you that one because you're like,
you sent me that one.
You were like, Gerald Everett is not getting into the end zone tonight. I'm like,
and then he got in there twice. Like, what in the world? Yeah, he got in there twice. Jordan Palmer also got into the end zone too, or Joshua Palmer also got in the end zone. So I was also right, but I mean, 2 touchdowns from Gerald Everett.
You're so adamant. You're like you were like Gerald Everett will not see the end zone, and I'm like, you are lying to yourself.
Absolutely, and let's jump into that game that you just talked about, because that was Saturday night. We had the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the LA Chargers. Chargers up 27-0 at one point in the first half. Choke the game away, lose it 31-30. Dylan, who's to blame this Chargers loss? And I've got my own answer, and I think it's kind of crazy, but I want to hear what you have to say about who is responsible for this Los Angeles Chargers loss?
Oh, shoot. I have no reason to not blame Brandon Staley for this. I mean, they obviously went in and they fired their DC, they fired their quarterback's coach, and like they're making moves on the staff, whatever. Why did Brandon Staley get to stick around, bro? The fact that this guy cannot put his own ego aside, which is going to cost this team and short and just waste away the window that they have with Justin Herbert.
Indeed.
And like I already knew he was like that just from watching those games and the calls that he'll make, but watching Chargers games. But what he said in the press conference, like I think they just asked him this like yesterday or the day before, talking about the new hires that they had. He was saying or what they're gonna, or like who they think they're gonna look for to fill those positions that they just fired, obviously. And he said something along the lines, like I can't remember quite what it was, but he said something along the lines of like, oh yeah, there was a guy who was just a assistant on the Rams and then became a defensive coordinator, and he was like, I was that guy. He's like, we got to do this to find a guy like that. I'm like, why do you think you're such a good coach, bud?
Yeah.
Like, you haven't even won a playoff game yet with Justin Herbert.
No.
Like, it was the most egotistical thing. Like, and you had to really be listening to understand what he was saying. But it was like, when you catch on, you're like, did he really like just say that? Like, what? So, nah, I'm putting this on Brandon Staley. I think obviously everybody, when you have a collapse like that, it's, everybody has to take some fault, but he's at the helm of everything. So I'm putting the blame mainly on his shoulders.
And you've also got to think, like, why did he play all of his starters in a completely meaningless regular season game? I mean, they lost Mike Williams because they played him in a meaningless regular season game. They already hadn't clinched the playoffs. Like that was, or they'd already clinched the 5 seed. They could not move up and they could not move down. So it was like, why even play all your starters in that game anyway? You lose Mike Williams, you lose one of those threats. But I think I'm going to point my fingers to something else. And this is weird, but stick with me, okay? Stick with me. I'm going to point my finger at the best pass-catching running back in the NFL, Austin Eckler. And here's why I'm going to point my finger at Austin Eckler. I know what you may be thinking. That's insane. Why are you pointing it at probably the second best player on the stinking, probably not second best, third or fourth best player on the Chargers? Why are you pointing at Austin Eckler? And here's why. Because he cannot run the football. Austin Eckler cannot run the football. He is a phenomenal pass catcher, but he struggles so much to go between the tackles or guards. And here's the thing. Whenever you're up 27-0, what do you want to do? You want to run the football. You want to milk the clock. And Austin Eckler cannot get first downs on the ground. He just can't. He had that one big 25-yard run where he scored the first touchdown of the game, and that was it for yards greater than like 6, I think. Austin Eckler just cannot get it done on the ground. He is a phenomenal pass-catching running back, and I think he would be a perfect running back one for first, second, and third down. But here's the thing. Whenever you get down to those fourth quarters, you need a guy like an Elijah Mitchell, like we saw from the 49ers, being able to run the ball continuously with him in the fourth quarter and drain that clock because he's better at going through the tackles than Christian McCaffrey is. So I think you need a guy like that, and I think whenever you go into free agency, that's something you've got to look for because Austin Eckler is that guy. He's a phenomenal player, but I think he's partially to blame for this collapse because he couldn't run the ball. He couldn't get through the tackles even though there were open lanes, and he should have been able to push for a couple more yards.
I mean, I'm with you. I think you know how I feel about running the football. I would pride my entire NFL. Like if I was a coach, whatever, I would pride my entire team on running the football. So I wouldn't make it quite as boring as Greg Roman does, but like an effective run game would be, one of the top priorities for me. Even in this day and age of the NFL, like I want to get a shirt or like a hat that literally just says "Run the ball." Like plain as up.
Absolutely. And, there are a lot of really good running backs coming into the draft, so it'll be interesting to see what the Chargers do because they're really a complete team. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do in the draft. They could go maybe a tight end, I think could be interesting.
For the Chargers?
The Chargers. But I really think that them taking like a Tank Bigsby or maybe even like a oh my gosh, what's his name? Why am I forgetting his name? Deuce Vaughn. Like Deuce Vaughn, like late in the second or third round, whenever he's probably going to end up going, is like, I think that's a good pickup. Someone that they can put into the system and not take over Austin Eckler's job, but just enhance the run game that they have with Los Angeles.
I think they need to use their first pick on a receiver. Dude,
Really?
that's part of the problem, dude. Like, Justin Herbert, it's even more incredible that he's able to do what he does with, like, yeah, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams are obviously good, but like, dude, he has nobody that can take the top off the defense. They have the slowest
That's true.
receiving core in football. It's like, Keenan Allen's running at this stage in his career, 10 plus years in, he's not running any further than 10 yards per route. And
Yeah.
Mike Williams, he'll go get the occasional long ball, but it's like they need like a quicker, like maybe not someone like a Jameson Williams in last year's draft, but maybe Jackson Smith-Njigba falls in their hands. I saw he was in that mock draft I was talking about earlier. He was mocked 31st to the Eagles, so
that's insane.
He might still be sitting there.
The Eagles aren't taking Jackson Smith-Njigba. What? Whoa! The Eagles aren't taking Jackson Smith-Njigba with their first pick. They have no reason to.
That was
they have
absurd.
no reason. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead. I'm just.
You're fine. I agree, but
there's no reason for them to do that. Sorry.
That's the one knock I had on. That's the one knock I had on JSN is like, occasionally when he would have like a big play, like a big burst play, like a lot of the time he would get tracked down by the DBs, but he still's got speed, so like he's gonna get himself open downfield and whatnot. So someone like that, like I think the Chargers, I think a lot of people looking at like the Bears to take Jackson Smith-Njigba to pair him with Justin Fields and whatnot, and maybe the Giants, but I think a sneaky team in the sweepstakes for him is the Chargers. So
that's interesting. I really like that call, though. I think that does make a lot of sense for them to get somebody to take the top off the defense. But let's talk about the other team on the other side of this Chargers-Jaguars game. We have the Jaguars, and it was a tale of two halves for this team because Trevor Lawrence comes out, throws 3-year quarterbacks or 4 interceptions, 3 or 4? Is it 4?
4.
I think it was 4. Yeah. 4 interceptions, and 3 of them went to Asante Samuel Jr., which was crazy. What a playoff debut for him. But just Trevor Lawrence looked terrible in the first half. Comes out second half, throws 3 touchdowns, has over a 145 passer rating. I mean, just insane from this guy in the second half of that football game. So what do you think about this team moving forward? They've got the toughest matchup, or probably one of the toughest matchups here in the divisional round going against the Chiefs. So what do you think about this Jaguars team and what they could be able to do through the rest of this playoff run?
I mean, I don't know. I don't want to give them no confidence because I feel like I've been doing that lately without even meaning to. But I think they do really actually hang around there for a minute with the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are going to have just like the slightest bit of rust, and you're going to see it come off like late in the third and then in the fourth quarter. I think. So I mean, I'm going to give him a shot here. I think Trevor Lawrence comes out and looks good. He's the type of guy that even though they obviously won, and so the 4 picks kind of got erased from everybody's memory, like. He's still not going to be content with that performance. So I think he's the type of player that'll come back and bounce back from that.
For sure.
But I think their run ends here. I do.
I think so too. But I don't think you can ever count out this team because they are so young. We don't know what they're made of yet. You've got basically a first-year running back. You've got a second-year quarterback. I mean, you've got a lot of stuff that's working for you if you're this Jaguars team, a really young defense. And I think you look at the coach, too, and you see Doug Peterson has played the ultimate underdog before. He's led Nick Foles to be a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Like you look at this staff and you say, if there's anyone that could run this underdog wavelength, it's Doug Peterson, and it's the Jaguars team. So we'll see what happens. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I think it's going to be a really entertaining game, and I think Trevor Lawrence is going to come out looking a lot better than he did against the Chargers. Let's move on here. Buffalo Bills in Miami. This was kind of one of those games that we all knew the Bills were going to win, but the Dolphins hung around there for a little bit at the end. I don't think anyone actually believed that they had a chance to win this game, but they didn't look terrible when they were out there for some time. So, yeah, that's true. Not in the rigged NFL. But, Josh Allen had those big throws. He had his Gabe Davis picks. He had his Stephon Diggs. But he also had his turnovers. So, that's something that's always expected with that Josh Allen experience is that he can sometimes be a little careless with the football. Bills take care of business, and they go and they play the Bengals this weekend. Going to be an incredible game. But, Dylan, real quick, what did you think from this game? I think Miami, if they would have had Tua, would have been a much, much better game than what we saw from them here against the Bills.
I agree. I mean, the fact that they hung around and made it interesting made me happy. I kind of took a nap midway through that game. So it is what it is. I don't really have much to say about that. I think the Dolphins are in a somewhat interesting spot. I'll be interested to see what their offseason looks like. I feel like personally that's a sleeper team to end up with a new quarterback. Not necessarily anything against Tua, but can they really he's becoming a liability at this point. So, injury liability.
I think that's crazy too, because everyone was talking about him being an injury liability coming out of the draft, and I was like, I don't know. He's only had like one major injury, and then all of a sudden he's come in with like almost 4 concussions this season. Like, that's unfortunate, and that's scary. Yeah, it's crazy.
So I mean, we'll see what happens, but on the Bills side of things, I think this is the game. I think they might have been looking forward just a little bit. I think they knew they were going to get the Bengals. They might have been looking ahead just a tad bit. So
I think so too.
I think that was grounds for the Dolphins to cover the spread there. So
absolutely. Let's move on to our next one here. We've got the Giants taking on the Vikings. We saw something that I expected not to see. I thought the Vikings were going to take care of business, but you predicted it. You said the Giants would go ahead and take this game against the Vikings. Dylan, were you impressed with what you saw from the Vikings? Of course, Dexter Lawrence looked phenomenal. Daniel Jones, goodness gracious, 300-plus passing yards, almost 80 yards on the ground. I mean, had a phenomenal game.
Yep. The Vikings, I'm sorry, this is what it's going to look like with Kirk Cousins. And
absolutely.
Yeah, sure, he had a good game, but what happened when it mattered? What happened on that 4th down when your season's on the line? He made maybe the worst read I've seen in my life, not made from Baker Mayfield. Dude, it's 4th and 7 or 4th and 8, and you're throwing like a 3-yard check down. Like, even if the pressure's in your face, I had to go back and watch the play, but like,
it was Dexter Lawrence was right there in his face.
Dude, at that point, where's 18? Where's 18?
Yeah,
I don't care.
Exactly.
I don't care if the whole defense is on Justin Jefferson. That is who you put your season on the line in the hands of.
Absolutely.
And it's 1,000 times better than what the decision he did make. So
yeah.
If that was a pick, I wouldn't have blamed him. I would have completely let Kirk Cousins off the hook here. But it came down to Kirk Cousins. But at the same time, their defense is also terrible. So
it is.
The Giants, though. You got to give credit to Brian Dable and what he's done with Daniel Jones. So I think that was just a better coached football team.
Absolutely. Brian Dable's got these Giants playing with conviction right now, and it really showed. This was a great game for the Giants. Vikings are going to be definitely trying to make some moves this offseason. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe a sleeper team to try and get maybe a Derek Carr or something like that would be the Vikings here. I know they probably want to stick with Kirk Cousins since they've got him on a bigger deal, but wouldn't surprise me if they tried to go out of their way and get one of those free agents that is going to be available. But yeah, just a complete fall apart from the Vikings. I had a feeling it was going to happen, but I went with the Vikings anyway to win because I trust 18 way too much. But whenever you can't get in his hands at the end of the game, that's what it comes down to. And the Giants were able to come out with a win. We got 2 more games here. We can kind of speed through these. We got Bengals and Ravens. Bengals come out with the win here. Ravens had a chance to tie it up. Of course, we had the 98-yard fumble return. But, honestly, this was a little interesting for me from an offensive point of view with the Bengals. I'll talk about that in just a second. Dylan, what did you see from these 2 teams?
This is, that game went exactly how I was expecting. I thought the Bengals would end up covering, but, it wasn't too far off of what I was expecting in that game. I'll just say that.
Yeah. For sure. But the most interesting thing that I saw in this game was the passes that Joe Burrow was having to throw. This is obviously going to be one of the better defenses that they'll have to face throughout their entire playoff run was this Baltimore Ravens defense. I mean, just leaps and bounds better than they were at the beginning of the season, especially after adding Roquan Smith. But the Bengals, it looked interesting. Had 2 offensive linemen go down, didn't they, 2? Or was it just 1?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
2.
So they had 2 go down, which is really interesting. But Joe Burrow was also had a lot of pressure in his face the entire game. And he was only throwing the ball like 6-7 yards downfield when Joe Burrow is one of those guys that you think can take the top off of the defense 24/7 with Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase especially. But, Jamar Chase looked great. Joe Burrow looked just about as good as you can against a really good Ravens defense. And, I think that this game against the Bills is going to be one heck of a showdown between those 2 teams, just like we were expecting to see just a few weeks ago in week number 17. But I think an interesting game to look at. I think that this makes me more excited to see J.K. Dobbins get some more action next year in the Baltimore backfield. I mean, he looked pretty good in this game, which is another reason why I'm surprised they didn't just try and run it up the gut with him at that 1 yard line. And Tyler Huntley tried to do his best Brock Purdy or Joe Burrow or Matt Stafford and try and reach the ball over the top of the defensive line. So, but nonetheless, I think this was interesting. The Bengals looked good, honestly. Sam Hubbard had, of course, that crazy 98-yard fumble recovery, and I think it was really fun to watch.
Yep. This Bengals got the game of the week this week, though. 100%.
Absolutely.
I'm ready for that.
Absolutely. And then finally, the Dallas Cowboys win their first playoff game on the road since 1993. So 30 years since the Cowboys had won an away playoff game. Dylan, how does it make you feel as a Cowboys fan, taking down Tom Brady, maybe even ending his career? How does that make you feel as a Dallas Cowboy fan?
I so bad just want to make this my Kobe Bryant moment. Like, job finished, job not finished.
Job not finished. Job not
we've got
finished.
A path. I think we've really, truly got a path to the Super Bowl.
Absolutely. It's crazy.
It's more clear than it's been for me in a minute. A clearer path than I have seen in a minute. So I'm not saying nothing. I'm holding my tongue, but I'm happy with what we did. I'm glad we finally beat Tom Brady too. I'm
happy too. And Dalton Schultz just comes in with the game of his life on a contract year. So maybe that impacts, maybe it doesn't so much. But let's talk about this weekend. 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday for our divisional round of the playoffs. Are you ready to jump into these games, Dylan? Find out what my gut feeling is and see who's moving on to the conference championship games.
I got to prepare myself for this, dude. Like, I'm thinking of these 2 games. I'm like, either one of these, I'm still just going to be like, bro, you're insane. But I'm going to say first of all, read the spreads for these 2 games first.
For these 2 games, you've got a 9-point spread. Chiefs favored by 9 at home against the Jaguars. 9 even. And then you've got the Giants, who are 7.5-point dogs going into Philadelphia. So interesting that line is less than the Chiefs and Jaguars line, which I think is a little interesting. But
you got to think these 2 teams have seen each other twice now.
That's very true. That is very, very true. So, Dylan, what are you thinking? First game on Saturday, Jaguars, Chiefs. How do you think this one plays out?
I'm going to say it just cut and dry because I'm ready to hear what you say, but I'm going Chiefs. I'm going Eagles. I think this is a very square betting day. And at the end of this, we're putting together an anytime touchdown score for every game.
Absolutely. We are. 1 for every game. I love that. That is phenomenal. I'm going to stick with you. I go with the Chiefs here against Jacksonville. But, Dylan, this is where my gut instincts kick in. I'm not feeling good about the Eagles. They've met this team twice. Both times the games have been close. When it all matters, the Eagles have a lot to play for. The Giants can come out here and say, we're rebuilding. We can take out our NFC East opponent and give me the Giants on the money line, on the points to beat the Eagles. That is my gut feeling. You can shake your head all you want, but whenever that happens, I want you to remember me because the Giants are going to take out the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think it's all going to come down to Saquon Barkley and what he is able to do against this Eagles defense. Can he have over 100 yards? I think if he does, then the Giants come away with a win here against the Eagles.
Hold on, I got something for you. I feel like this will help you out.
Help me out, brother. Help me out.
We've got the National Drug Hotline.
Dude, how did you know? How did you know I did the line before I came on?
I didn't know you had an issue like that. I wish you would have told me. I'm here for you, bro. It's okay. I'm gonna send you that number and go ahead and give it a call, bro.
No, I'm
Go ahead and give it a
telling you
call.
right now, I've got this feeling. I've got it deep in my soul. I really do. I really feel like this is going to happen. I feel like it's just lining up to be that storybook kind of game. I think that, we haven't seen a bad game from A.J. Brown all season long. We haven't seen a bad game really from Jalen Hurts, except for maybe against the Commanders, maybe against, a couple of those teams earlier on in the season. But the Eagles have shown that they are vulnerable. They've shown that they can lose. They're not coming off of a win at the end of the season. And I think that this team, Jalen Hurts is going to have some rust. He has not played football in 5 weeks. I think it's going to be interesting. And I think the Giants are going to get out to an early lead in that first half. And I think they're going to hold on to it.
I mean, I can see the first half thing happening, but I'm just going to send you a selfie of me smiling with a beer in my hand when the Eagles do win this game. So,
hey, you know what?
No context. No context.
Here's the thing. I don't care because neither of these teams are making it out of the next round anyway, so it doesn't even matter. But let's move on to our Sunday slate, and these are going to be the two best games I think of the entire weekend. We've got the Bills and the Bengals, and the Cowboys and the 49ers. I mean, this is just going to be a really fun weekend here, especially on Sunday. None of these games happening till the afternoon, which kind of sucks, but nonetheless, Dylan, what are you thinking for these two games? We'll talk about Cincinnati and Buffalo first. Last time these two teams faced was Week 17. Game was canceled because of the Damar Hamlin injury, and now turf has changed. Buffalo with Bills Mafia. Does this change the outcome? Is this going to be the game that everyone thinks it's going to be? Be that shootout, be that close game, and maybe one of these two teams be in the fish and make it to the Super Bowl?
Zach, we'll do our Super Bowl prediction at the end where we stand right now. But I'm going to, I think the Bengals beat the script, bro. They beat the script.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. I'm taking the Bengals. I'm rocking with Joe Burrow. I don't – you should have heard me last night at the bar talking about Joe Burrow. I told you a couple weeks ago that, I think he's better than Josh Allen, right?
Yeah.
Because you were calling me and saying, yeah, I was preaching that last night too. And I don't care. I'm rocking with it. I don't think there's a player. I don't think there's a player that has my confidence in the entire NFL more than Joe Burrow, bro. I would pick that guy in any game, bro. I don't care. You have Mahomes, and then it's a little bit of a gap, and then just Burrow and then down. Burrow, Allen, whoever else. So I will stand by that. Give me Joe Burrow any day of the week, bro.
Give him Joe Burrow.
He's got that it factor.
He does. He has that it factor. I will say he does have that it factor now. Hold
on.
I've already said that. This isn't the first time. I've said that. I said that earlier in the season.
I just need you to say it again.
I'll say it. Call Tyler. Call Tyler right now.
Well, I'm recording on Snapchat.
Okay. You ready?
Yep. Say it again.
Tyler, I just want to tell you, and everybody else out there, that I do believe that Joe Burrow has that dog in him, has that it factor now. I said that a few weeks ago, but I'm going to stick by it here, and I think that he's going to show that this week against the Bills because I think he is. I think he's going to show that he has that. But, man, this is just a 50-50 game. This is legitimately a 50-50 game in my eyes. Earlier on in the season, I said that my Super Bowl prediction was Bills and Cowboys. And you know what? I don't feel like I have seen enough to prove me completely wrong because I feel like this game is such a toss-up. And I feel like this game is going to be so competitive and so good in so many levels. And I think that for the sake of competition, not only with you and with Tyler and all the other people that live in Ohio, and for the sake of my own Super Bowl prediction, I'm going to go with the Bills here to take this one over the Bengals. But I do think that this is such a 50-50 matchup. I feel like really the only key is if that Bengals line can really hold against the Bills because the Bills have a great front four. If there was Von Miller, I think this might be a totally different story because I think that undoubtedly they wouldn't be able to hold as well as you think they could. But without him, I think this is going to be a really close game. I think this is probably going to be the best game of the week. It's going to be super competitive. But for the sake of competition, I'm going to take the Bills here, even though I could see this one going either way.
Yeah, I'm going to go Bengals. gonna fade you there. So
Absolutely.
I like the Bengals plus 3.5 a lot.
Go for it. Right now they're at plus 5.5, so you can take plus 5.5 on them.
And you just gave. I feel like you just gave a tell to the who you're gonna pick in the next game then too.
Yeah, let's move on to the next game. We've got Cowboys.
I think you just spoiled it for yourself.
I think I did spoil it for myself, so I'll go ahead and say it. I think the Cowboys have what it takes to beat the 49ers. Realistically, this is what they have to do to succeed. Leighton Vander Esch has to have another great game, because if you can take away that middle of the field and you can play like he did, making that kind of lurking kind of middle linebacker position, I think you can cut off the middle of that field, and that's where Purdy likes to sit. He likes to hit Ayuk there. He likes to hit Debo there. He likes to hit Christian McCaffrey there. If you can take away that middle, you're going to make him beat you long, or you're going to make him beat you on the ground. And I think the Cowboys have the corners and the safeties, especially if J-Ron Kearse is going to play this week against the 49ers, which I think he's going to. I think that you have the safeties and you have the corners to be able to hold up against some of those super fast some of those super fast offensive threats. And then it just comes down up in the run. And that's been a struggle for the Cowboys all year long. But if they can figure it out and they can play to their strengths, I think if this Cowboys offense is on, they're able to move the ball, which I think they'll be able to do against this team. I think that is a recipe for success for the Dallas Cowboys. So give me the Cowboys. Give me the Cowboys on the money line. Give me probably the over in this game of 46 points. And give me the Cowboys to take this one against the 49ers on the road.
Okay. I'm rocking with them too, so that means they're losing. But all right,
rock with the boys. Come on. Hey, you know what? We're living off a high. Okay, give us this. Give us this one thing. We finally won a playoff game. Like, just let us live in the moment. Of course, that means Mike McCarthy is going to be staying. But other than that, I think this is great. This is just great for all Cowboys fans out there. I mean, we've really just expanded. Like, this is just incredible. I loved last week, and I wanted to keep rolling. So give me the Cowboys. You're going to take the boys too. But let's talk about what we think for Super Bowl predictions. Dylan, why don't you go off? Has it changed from the beginning of the year? I know you're a big Bills guy coming into the season. Has that changed? Do you have a different pick for the Super Bowl?
I'm going to rock with Cowboys, and I'm going to rock with Cowboys Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and the Cowboys win it.
I like the pick. I honestly think I'm just going to stay with my pick I had at the beginning of the year. I've got the Bills edging out the Bengals like we just talked about. And I think Josh Allen gets his revenge on Patrick Mahomes in the conference championship. I think that's what everyone's expecting. And give me Bills Cowboys. I think, the Cowboys definitely have a line there. I think that they've proven that they can beat both the Eagles and the Giants. And I think that, this is going to be a really interesting side of the NFC, but I ultimately think that the AFC is going to win the Super Bowl no matter who it is that they go against. I think the AFC is just way too powerful right now. I think the Bengals, the Chiefs, or the Bills could win the Super Bowl right now if you gave them the opportunity to. So this is just going to be a really interesting Super Bowl season. But nonetheless, Dylan, we've talked about the playoffs. We've gotten through everything. Is there anything else you want to say before we sign off on the podcast for the day?
Go get yourselves a beer.
You heard it from the man. You heard it from the man. I don't drink, but maybe if you do, you can go find yourself a beer somewhere.
You can get like a virgin strawberry daiquiri from somewhere.
I'm allergic to strawberries, you dipshit.
All right, well,
anyway, let's move on to
water it is.
Water it is. Water it is. No, I'm just messing with you. Anyway, that was the Bearded Podcast. We love you guys. Keep it chill. Coming at you here. Love football. I hope you guys love it as well. This weekend's going to be phenomenal. So turn your TVs on. Get watching. I miss Scott Hansen already. This was the Bearded Podcast. I'm Jordan Crouton Moore. That's Dylan Lowe, and we will see you guys.